Alright, the 20th of October, just coming up to about 10:30 or so. And Ellen is here in the Spitfire. And we're just heading up to a Toronto Triumph Club meeting. It's just starting to spit rain, actually. It's a little bit gray out here. Anyway, I'm going to attempt to get into the Spitfire. Oh, it's going to be very tough with the roof on, so I don't know. Anyway, we'll attempt it. So we're going up to Exotic Motorworks, doing a tour of the facility up there. So we'll see if we can take a little bit of video when we get up there. Okay. I made it into the Spitfire with the top up, unbelievably.
But we're gonna drive first and second only because third and fourth, no room.
Oh, can't shift it with my leg there. All right, here we go. Oh.
Which way we go?
Turn right.
Yeah, main GPS.
Okay, we're heading to, well, up through downtown Newmarket. This is Main Street. Ellen and I were actually on Main Street at a car show probably about, I don't know, 4 months ago now?
Yeah.
No, don't run over these people.
Yeah, they shouldn't be there.
These new marketers. So this is Main Street, Newmarket. Typical Ontario, Canada small town. Yeah. Well, what's giving you that?
What? What's his problem?
Don't know.
Was there a stop sign or
No.
anything? What was his problem?
You're driving a little red Spitfire, he's just jealous.
Wow. More than that.
See, now we got freezing rain. Get the rain X out.
It's fine.
He keeps grabbing my leg though. Alright, we made it to Exotic Motorworks, and we've got the TTC members standing by. Some brave souls drove their cars. Brave souls without tops even. I got a few Brits in the parking lot.
No, but this is where this place here is where.
I managed to get out of the Spitfire. Oh. TR6. That looks like a wedge under there. 7 there. Is that an Alpha? That's an Alpha. I'm going to say, yes, 190. Oh, sorry, it's a Maserati. My bad. Got some wiring issues.
That's not a Triumph.
I'm allowed to look at Maseratis. I like saying Maserati. I like to own a Maserati just so I can say Maserati.
Oh shit, I forgot what I hear.
And a Corvette sneak in here amongst all the Brits.
Nice. Yeah, looking forward. Ready for play.
This would be good with my daily driver. I don't know if that would fit in my garage or not.
I thought that was a Jaguar. It's a Greyhound.
Yeah, it's a 32 Ford.
Okay. What is this crap? Fucker of the ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
$1 million, but we want to earn it. I don't make a penny from the business, and Alex is the one who does all the technical work. I could even change his part. It's pretty terrible. To be honest with you, 25 years in motorsport and having had tons of British cars, I couldn't fix anything. So fortunately with the 6 Jags I have right now. I have Alex, and he keeps me on the road. So it's very fortunate because they're probably what's that?
You get 6, so there's only one running.
That's it. Yeah, well, my wife doesn't know I have 6 yet.
Shop and bring shine back to it. It was pretty deteriorated when it came in. But runs, drives, sounds runs at the top actually, so we don't have too much to do on this.
What's the logo on the front?
This one?
No.
The gray one? The gray one?
V8.
Yeah, the gray. Yeah, the gray one. It was on the VA model. So this was, I believe, it was also available in the flathead 4-cylinder configuration, like in all the P's and A's. This was the first year it came with the flathead. So this is.
This is the scope notes.
All right, they actually have a TR250 in the shop being restored. This is Vic Johnson's car, and it's going to be a Valencia blue car when it's done. The last time I saw this car, it was red. So this is going to be quite nice. He's got actually the W58 Toyota Trans conversion in this, and the Nissan R200 rear differential. So it's going to be a nice cruiser. It's got the stock engine in it. Anyway, it's going to be super nice when it's done. It's been worked on now for the last few years, so they're hoping to get this out in the spring, so I'll be interested to see it when it's done. This is the engine building room. Look like 2 Jaguar blocks here. Jag rear end there. Volkswagen, Maserati, I believe that's out of the Maserati inside there, and rough bodywork. A big block. Pretty small area. So Linda's brought the drone so we can take a look at my roof. Apparently we had a windstorm, I don't know, it was probably 3 or 4 months ago, and one of my neighbors came over and said he was having some work done on his roof, and he actually, the roofer that was doing the work on his roof, looked across at my roof and said I was missing a couple of shingles, I think on the ridge. I can't see it from the street or from the rear of the house, so we're gonna maybe see if we can just do a quick flyover with the drone and see if we can see where those shingles are missing and what I've got to do to get them fixed. So we'll see if we can do this without crashing into houses or backyards, or we got no telephone wires. Telephone wires. Hydro wires. Telephone wires, I think I'm like 1800s. Anyway, we'll see what we can do. Okay. Let it rip. should be good, I think. Hey, good morning guys. Tush coming at you. Sunday, October the 21st. Just coming up to 10:15 in the AM. And we're back on the 250 project this morning. Had a good day yesterday at Exotic Motorworks. Checking out their shop, and that 250 project they had there was moving along quite nicely. So it was good to see that in the shop. Anyway, we're back on our project this morning, and we're going to fit this inner brace to this trunk lid. And if you recall, I had a question about this little spacer piece. And let me just grab it off of here real quick. See if this macro works well on the new camera that I'm using this morning for the first time out here in the garage. So this little spacer, oh, that's not good. My hinge pin just came apart. Anyway, we'll grab that off the floor in a minute. I think we're going to get some new hinges for this car. Anyway, this hinge, or this little spacer piece, I didn't know where it went. So I actually picked up my spare parts catalog, and this is a very handy book to have. I'm fortunate enough to have a couple of hard copies. I have an original manual from back in the day. It's actually a binder from Standard Triumph that I've got as part of my book collection, but I've also got this catalog, which was produced by the Roadster factory, which is in hard copy. I don't believe this is produced anymore. Anyway, I was looking at the catalog here, and basically number 18 is what they're calling a distance piece, and it's for the hinge piece. I thought it might be down here at the bottom as a sort of a spacer between the tube, so it didn't collapse the tube, but apparently it's up here on the hinge, and I guess it's a spacer between the actual stiffener piece, or structural piece, whatever you want to call it, and the actual bonnet lid. So anyway, regardless, I'm missing one of these, so I'll have to fashion one of these. Or actually, I looked this morning, it looks like they're actually still available to be purchased, so we may just go ahead and purchase one of those as opposed to trying to make one of them. It is metal. Anyway, we'll figure out what we're going to do with that, but we'll go ahead and we'll mount that structural piece inside there before we start doing any body work on the trunk. Okay, there's the structural piece installed on the inside of the boot lid. And you can see how the hinge point sort of captures this front structural piece. This is where the spacer is underneath here. I just made a spacer for this side temporarily. And then there's two fixing points here and here for the bottom of this brace. So anyway, we'll go ahead and we'll fit this to the car, and we'll cinch it down loosely so we have at least the structural integrity of this lid intact, and we can see how far this lid is out and how much adjustment it needs once it's on the car. All right, the boot lid's on, and actually it doesn't fit too badly for as much work as this boot lid has had done on it. The gaps are actually pretty good. They're pretty good across the top, all the way across. It's a little high in the far corner, but I can do a little bit of, I think it's probably high because there's been so much work done here in this area. So I just probably need to build this little area up here with a little bit of filler, I think, or a little bit of fiberglass. But the gaps on the side are not too bad. They're fairly consistent. They go a little narrow to wide, but they actually go narrow to wide on both sides, so I'm okay with that. And the fit down the bottom is pretty good as well. It could probably go in a little bit on this side, but it's pretty flush all the way along the bottom, all the way across, so that's not too bad. Again, we got to do some filler work here where all that brazing is, and we have to do some filler work on the rear valence as well and on the sides. So we should be able to get that to match up okay, I think. So I'm not too unhappy with that. I'll show you the next issue with panel fitment, and this is going to be with the driver's side rear fender. While I had Lynn here yesterday, we were having a little chat about how to tackle this. There's a bit of a bow in this fender, and I think it's because of some of the previous repairs that have been done on it. I could probably actually pull it in with fasteners, and again, remember there's a piece of beading going in along this edge between the fender and the body tub. And I could probably pull it in, like I said, with fasteners, but I'd rather try to fix it and take the bow out of it before I try to do that, before I try to force the fender. So maybe what I'll try to do is I'll fit the fender up and I'll show you what I'm talking about as far as the bow is concerned and how we're going to go about fixing it. Alright, so here's a look at that ugly fender gap that I was talking about. This is from the front side, obviously, looking downwards. And I'll show you from the other end. So again, I've only got one fastener in at the front, but it gives you an idea of the fitment. And again, I could pull it in to a degree with the fasteners along these locations, but I don't really want to do that. I don't really want to stress the fender. I'd rather have it fitting, you know, nicely without having to force it into place with the fasteners. Especially if I'm going to be doing some body work on this fender. There's a dent here, for example. And I need quite a bit of body work up in this area, so if I start forcing things, it's just going to end up cracking the body work anyway. So what I had decided to do after a discussion with Ellen yesterday is we think a lot of the issues are back here in the rear of this fender, where there's been a lot of repairs done in the past, some of it done by me, and some of it not done so well by the previous owner of this car. For example, this rear patch, it actually looks like, if I'm looking at it, it actually looks like this patch is actually kicking out this way. And I think what's happening is, when we looked at this yesterday, we're thinking that this patch, because we're forcing this end of it in, is ending up opening up this area up here. So there's going to be a little bit of a trick to fix this. I'm probably going to end up cutting the flange. I'll show you the flange on the inside. There's been some pretty poor flange work done, overlapping flanges, for example. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is cut the flange where it's overlapped and repair that flange, and then we'll try to maybe fix this area where it's sticking out the wrong way, and we'll I'm going to have the flange cut anyway, so I might be able to push that back the other way. We'll have to wait and see. So it's going to take a lot of I think cutting and re-welding in this area back here in order to fix this gap up here. So, and maybe I'll try to pound this dent out a little bit while we're there, while I've got access from the inside. So we'll do a little work on this fender and see what we can make it, see if we can make it look any better than this currently does. So just to refresh your memory on how much of a mess these rear fenders are, so there's had been a lot of work done in the back here. You can see sort of an overlaying a bunch of metal here, where they've created this TR250 fender out of a TR6 fender and grafted a rear section onto this fender to make it work. So this whole section here, for example, is from a TR4 4A or 250, and this fender forward is a TR6 fender. Locations for the bumper mounts, for example, were in the wrong place. The rear flange had a ton of work on it because the rear flange was different. And here's the area I was talking about where they did the overlapping flange. You can see the old flange here on the bottom and the new flange on top. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this entire piece of this flange out of here for starters, and then we'll work on repositioning this rear piece, which is pointing in the wrong direction, as I'd mentioned. But I'm going to have to make a cut here anyway to sort of relieve that so I can sort of bend that forward. I may end up having to cut along the top here and bring this flange out, but we'll wait and see. Let's work on this flange first, cutting this piece out, and we'll see what that does for us as far as movement is concerned. Nasty. Alright, I think the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut through this weld straight down the side of the fender, which will break this edge, and I should be able to turn that or tweak that a little bit if I break this edge, and then I can just do a repair afterwards. So we'll cut back through this weld and see what happens. You can already see how that sort of sprung back, the way the gap has increased, and it's already sprung back sort of the way I want it to. So it was obviously under stress there before I cut that. So anyway, we'll fit it up and play around a little bit, and then we'll see what we need to do next. Okay, we've got it looking a little bit better now with those cuts, the vertical cuts we did. The gap is much better. So we're going to weld up. I did a few more cuts along the back here to sculpt this in a little bit better. Now, obviously you're going to have to be careful when we weld this back, but it doesn't look too bad. Obviously that's going to move in a little bit. We'll just push it when we weld it. So that looks not bad. It looks not bad up there. I think what I might do, this flange here on the body top has had a lot of work, so I have either the option of doing some Bondo work on the inside here, or I was thinking about doing a little bit of a cut and shut, so just cutting along the top of the fender, moving it over and just welding it from this area to this area. So we might do that, but we're going to fix up these areas first and get these solid, and maybe fix that flange up on the inside, and then come back and do this little cut and shut here and weld back across the top. So that should be able to fill up that gap. It's not that bad right now, but I could probably make that look a little bit better. I also did a little bit of a relief cut up here through the bronze. I had a lot of work done in here, and it seemed to be sticking out a little bit here, so we've done a cut here. Might be a little difficult to weld back in here because of all this brazing, but we'll see. Anyway, we'll get to tacking this back together and see what it looks like then. Hopefully it won't move too much. Alright, we're just taking our time doing the shutting part of the cut. So we've just got some tacks along the line here, and we started tacking this along the back here, and we're keeping an eye on movement, and we're making sure we just don't go too quickly. We're making sure we cool the welds down before we continue on. So it's looking not too bad so far, so we'll just continue on, and hopefully we'll have a good result at the end. Okay, we've got the fender pretty much ground down. It's not finished ground yet, but just done a quick grind on it. It looks not too bad. I think what we're going to do now is we're going to add a little bit of filler to this flange that we talked about, just to help it out a little bit. Probably add a little filler up here as well to get rid of some of this crap. And we'll add a little filler over the top of this area just to smooth this out a little bit while we're there. So we're going to break out the fiberglass, and we're going to do a thin layer just to straighten things out a little bit. I've been working on bodywork. I've got a single coat of fiberglass filler on there, followed by a single coat of Bondo. And we're just trying to build things up a little bit. And I've put a couple of coats of, first again, fiberglass filler, and then some Bondo on the flange piece to straighten it up a little bit, just to fill in some of the indents. So the only thing with it being so cold in the garage, it's only about 50 degrees Fahrenheit, it's about 10 degrees Celsius out here. It takes a while for the filler to harden. So in the meantime, I'm making myself busy. I'm going to fix this flange here. I've got myself a piece cut. We just traced this piece out, and we'll weld this back in here, weld up the gaps where I cut it. I got one big one here. Probably have to put a little piece of metal in there as well. So we'll fix these areas up, and then we'll get ready to shape that filler roughly, and then we'll just do a real quick test fit up of the fender before we go in for the evening. It's already coming up to 6:30, so it's been a little bit of a long day out here anyway, and of course it's a work day tomorrow, so I've got things to do and to get ready for work tomorrow. So anyway, we'll stay out here probably for another half hour or so, and then we'll head in for the night. I'll give you an update, one more update before we go in. Alright, end of night update. It's just coming up to 7:45. So we've got this gap looking much, much better. but as we progress down here, I'm still having an issue at this end. And I mean, I've still got some repairs to do back down in here, and I haven't bolted it up fully. There's no fastener in this location yet, but it's still blowing out towards this end here. Now, I didn't do any sort of cutting along the top of the fender on this one, so I'm thinking I might want to do that as my next course of action here, since I've tried to do the other way. I might have tweaked it a little bit when I put that flange back in here, which sort of ran from here to here. So I did it carefully, but I still might have warped the panel a little bit. Anyway, I think the next step for me is going to be to cut again, to cut along the top. We'll do a cut and shut, cut it and move the flange out, and then weld it back and see how we do there. That'll be my next course of action on that. But here's what it looks like that way. So you can see it looks 100% better than what I started with this morning, but still definitely needs some work down this end. All right, that's it for tonight, guys. We'll get back out here probably tomorrow night and hopefully finish this area off, at least fender-wise, and then we'll continue on with the bodywork.